morning. I am Caleb from PLZ News. Today we are filming from the Arctic. We have many special guests to help us better understand the Arctic. Our first guest is here to tell us about where the Arctic is located.
The Arctic is named after a group of stars named Arctos. This is a Greek word which means bear. The Arctic weather has changed a lot in the last 50 years. Alaska has gotten colder, warmer, and Canada has gotten colder.
Second guest is here to tell us about the Arctic. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you, Caleb.
Where is the Arctic located?
Located at the top of the world, the North Pole is another name for the Arctic.
Guest is going to tell us about the geography in the Arctic. Welcome, Zohara.
Thank you, everyone.
What is the Arctic made out of?
The Arctic is made up of 8 countries.
These countries are Greenland, Finland, Greenland, Iceland, Alaska, Norway, Canada, and the U.S.
Our next guest is here to tell us more about the Arctic. Welcome, Sydney.
Thank you, Caleb.
What landforms are in the Arctic?
There are many different landforms you can see in the Arctic. Some parts are covered with ice sheets, glaciers, or lush tundra. In the Arctic, there are mountains, icebergs, plains, hills, rivers, lakes, and forests. The scenery in the Arctic is beautiful.
Our next guest is here to tell us more about the Arctic. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Caleb.
How much ice is in the Arctic?
Because 90% of the world's ice, 70% of the world's fresh water comes from the Arctic. The Arctic is mostly made up of water.
Next guest is here to tell us about the Arctic. Welcome, Caleb. Thank you, Ruth. How large is the Arctic? The Arctic is almost equal in size to North America. The Arctic is also twice the size of Australia. The Arctic is 2,133 meters thick. The Arctic Ocean is over 5 million square miles. Next guest is here to tell us about climate in the Arctic. Welcome, Abby.
Thank you, Caleb.
What is the weather like in the Arctic?
The weather in the Arctic is very cold. In summer, the weather can be cold. The temperature in winter can be between negative 58 Fahrenheit to 32 Fahrenheit. In summer, the temperature ranges from 37 Fahrenheit, 54 Fahrenheit.
Next guest is here to tell us about the climate in the Arctic. Welcome, Max.
Thank you, Caleb.
The weather like in the Arctic?
In the Arctic, there are many different types of weather. In the Arctic, it snows and the snow can turn into ice. In the Arctic, in the summer, it gets a little warmer, but it is still cold.
Next guest is here to tell us about climate in the Arctic. Welcome, Ariella.
Thank you,
Caleb.
What seasons are there in the Arctic?
There are 3 seasons in the Arctic. They are winter, spring, and summer. In winter, the sun never rises. In summer, the sun never sets. In the summer, it's always bright, and in the winter, it is always dark.
Our next guest is here to tell us about climate in the Arctic. Welcome, Eliana.
Thank you, Caleb.
What forms of transportation do people use in the Arctic?
People in the Arctic use many fun forms of transportation. In the winter, they use snowmobiles, skis, dog sleds, and snowshoes. In summer, when the snow melts, people use kayaks, boats, and boots.
Please stay tuned after this short message. Thank you.
This is the Arctic. Join Coca-Cola and World Wildlife Fund to help protect it, so the polar bear always has a place to call home. To donate and help create a safe refuge for the polar bear, look for white Coke cans and caps.
This guest is going to tell us about people in the Arctic. Welcome, Bailey.
Thank you, Max.
The people live in the Arctic.
People have lived in the Arctic for thousands of years. People have lived in different regions for many years. The earliest was Western Siberia, going back 40,000 years in North America. People lived there starting 50,000 years ago. Greenland and Canada were founded 11 years ago.
Our next guest is going to tell us more about the people in the Arctic. Welcome, Gabrielle.
Welcome, Max.
Types of people live in the Arctic.
There are many different kinds of people that you can find in the Arctic. In the Arctic, you can find Inuits, also known as Eskimos, Lapps, Kawasaki, Yakut, Chukchi, and Indians known as Aleut.
Our next guest is going to tell us more about people in the Arctic. Welcome, Maya.
Thank you, Max.
People live in the Arctic.
People in the Arctic live in many different types of houses, many similar to the ones we live in today. Others were very different from animal hide and ice. Those made from ice are called igloos.
Our next guest is going to tell us about people in the Arctic. Welcome, Yehuda.
Thank you, Ben.
What do people eat in the Arctic?
People in the Arctic eat just about anything they can get their hands on. These are some of the things they can eat: fish, seals, whales, caribou, reindeer, plants, and berries.
Our next contestant is going to tell us more about the people in the Arctic. Welcome, Ruth.
Thank you, Max.
What do people wear in the Arctic?
People in the Arctic wear very heavy clothes. They make shoes from caribou and reindeer. Boots made from polar bear or seal skin are waterproof. People in the Arctic need to stay warm.
Our next guest will tell us a fun fact about the people in the Arctic. Welcome, Mariella.
Thank you, Max. People in the Arctic didn't have wood to burn fire for warm or cooking. People had to eat raw meats because they couldn't not cook. During the summer, the sun never set.
Our next guest is going to tell us about the polar bear.
Thank you, Max. A polar bear has black skin, white fur, and blubber. A polar bear it eats seals. Polar bears' paws help them walk on ice.
Next guest is going to tell us about the wolverine.
Thank you, Max. The wolverine is white and brown. It has sharp teeth and is 4 feet long. A wolverine weighs between 30 to 40 pounds. They eat fox, elk, sheep, and snake.
Next guest is going to tell us about Arctic facts. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you, Yehuda. Arctic fox is the size of a small dog. They weigh up to 20 pounds. The Arctic fox eats rodents, birds, and fish. In the winter, they follow the polar bear to eat the leftovers. The mommy fox can have up to 4 pups at a time. The Arctic fox creates dens in rocks of hills.
Guest is going to tell us more about the polar bear. Welcome, Ethan.
Thank you, Max. A polar bear is white and furry. They eat seals, fish, and foxes. There are 5,500 species of polar bear. A polar bear is the world's largest predator.
Next guest is going to tell us about the blue whale. Thank you, Ethan. Welcome, Ethan.
Thank you, Max. A blue whale is the largest animal on Earth. They can be up to 94 feet long. A blue whale eats krill, copepods, and small fish. There are 6 different species. The Arctic whale swims near the top of the ocean.
Our next guest is going to tell us more about the Arctic fox. Welcome, Nava.
Thank you, Max. The Arctic fox has white and brown fur. They weigh between 7 and 21 pounds. They eat lemming, hares, owls, fish, and berries. Arctic hares are one of 4 species of lagpuses.